Hello and welcome to this exploring session, and today we are looking at more End Town. We're looking at plays 18 to 20. We last looked at End Town. We were looking at plays up to play 16. There is no play 17. Just in case you're wondering, there is no play 17. So we're jumping straight to play 18. End Town, as you may know if you're a regular viewer/listener, is a compilation text of various different sources that have been pulled together to make one lovely book that someone could sit down and read. And these plays may have been moved around or editorialized in various different ways, so they may not absolutely reflect the original performance that may have occurred for each of them. And how these plays have been broken up or put back together again is an interesting question that we may come up with. So we hope you're recovered from your Christmas dinner, because that's, I think, when this is scheduled to drop. It should be just after Christmas. So hopefully you're not too full, and you're having a lovely time. It's either that or civilization has collapsed since we recorded this. You know, it's so difficult to tell which way it's going to go. So, without further ado, reading today, the Virgin Mary is drinking some water at this moment. I timed that well.
Very, very well. Hi, I'm Eric, and I was actually seeing Maria this morning, so, from West Side Story.
Very similar tales.
Yeah.
Reading First King Joseph and First Soldier today is...
Hello, I'm Francis Cox. I'm an actor living in Amsterdam.
Continuing the numbers theme, reading Second King and Second Soldier today is...
Hello, I'm Lois Potter. Merry Christmas from London.
Reading Third King, Simeon and Moors today is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk, neither an actor nor an academic.
Reading Herod, Angel, Capellanus, yes, I'm going with that, is...
Hello, my name is Lynn Freitas. I am a college writing teacher. I live in the northwestern United States.
Reading Senescallus, a Second Woman and Demon today is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good. I'm a historian and I'm in Yorkshire.
And new to the group, be gentle everyone, reading First Woman and Anna is...
Hi, I'm Eleanor. I'm a actor, singer and producer based in Suffolk as well.
Yes, the Suffolk contingent is strong today, and we'll see how that lands with this. This is an East Anglian text, so that's very appropriate. So if you can do your proper Suffolk, then feel free to go. We were discussing whether we should go for a Middle English pronunciation or not, and I said no. But if you want to try accents, feel free. It's right. Don't. It's fine. Okay, so without further ado, we're leaping into what's down as play 18. This is play of the Magi. So we've had the shepherds, we've had the lovely shepherds, and now we are going to a very different world, a slightly more dangerous world. Trigger warning for everyone today. The narrative involving Herod goes in a quite child murdery direction. So that may involve scenes of violence that may be quite disturbing. To introduce us to that theme and another question of a terrifying babyish tyrant figure, whether that's triggering at all in these day and age, we shall see. Herod appears.
As a lord in royalty and none regent so rich, and ruler of all Remus, I ride in royal array. There is no lord of land in lordship to me like, none lovelier, none lovesomer, everlasting is my lay. Of beauties and boldness I bear evermore the bell, of main and of might I master every man. I ding with my doughtiness the devil down to hell, for both of heaven and earth I am king certain. I am the comeliest clad in glittering gold, yea, and the seemliest sire that may bestride a steed. I wield at my will all whites upon mould, yea, and worthily I am wrapped in a worthy weed. Ye knights so comely, both courteous and keen, to my palace will I pass, full priest I you plight. Ye dukes so doughty, follow me, Bedine, unto my royal palace. The way lieth full right. Whitely from my steed I skip down in haste. To mine halls I haste me in my way. Ye minstrels of mirth, blow up a good blast, whilst I go to my chamber and change my array.
Hail be ye kings twain, far riding out of your reign. Methinketh by your presence saying, ye seeketh our Saviour. Fro Saba have I followed far, the gleaming of yon gay star. A child's blood shall buy us dear, that there is born in beast's bower. My name is King Balthazar, of prophet's speech I am ware. Therefore, afar away I fare, a maiden's child to seek. For he made man of the mould, and is king of heaven hold. I will him offer the reed gold, as reason will me teach.
Melchizar, that my name is Kid, in hot love mine heart is hid, to the blossom upon his bed borne by beasts been. In Tars I am king with crown, by banks and brims brown. I have travelled by many a town, my lord's love to win. I seek him with incense suit, of all priests he shall be root. His bright blood shall be our boot to bring us out of bend. The child shall be chosen a priest, in all virtues founden meest. Before his father's fair breast, incense he shall upsend.
Ippitan and Arcage, I am a king known in cage. To seek a child of semblance sage, I have fair and far right. Jasper is my name known, in many countries that are mine own. Through bitter blasts that gin blown, I start after the star. I bring myrrh to my present, a bitter liquor verament. For he shall sullen bitter dent, in a maiden's flesh is clad. On bitter tree he shall be bent, man and God omnipotent. With bitter beating his flesh be rent, till all his blood be bled.
And we'll just pause there, because there's lots of interesting questions already thrown up about how this text functions. Is it me, or did Herod enter on a horse? I'm, it's entirely possible he literally enters in a horse, because the way this might have been staged is with an outdoor scaffold in one place. There might have been multiple placings. It might not be a moving wagons. These might be in place, set up specifically. So Herod might literally just be wandering around somewhere in the playing area. He could quite easily enter the audience on a horse. There's no particular reason why he doesn't do that. I put in my notes here, preen and strut.
Yeah.
He's really keen on his clothes there. Everything's quite gold. Quite keen on everything being gold. I don't know whether that brings anything to mind in this modern day and age at all. But again, don't want to be too triggering here. So yeah, Herod makes his boast and then says he's going to change. He's going to dress for the occasion.
Yeah, I find that really weird. I mean, why doesn't he just come in dressed as he's meant to be? It's very odd to bring a character on and then say, I'm going to get dressed.
Yeah.
It just seemed to be that they want to make an entry. I'm going with the horse here. I think it is just literally we're gonna just introduce him, and then we get to the three kings doing their three kinginess. It is weird, but I think it might work.
You wouldn't expect someone to. If someone comes in from riding, then yes, they would change, partly to get rid of the smell of horse. And partly because riding clothes and sitting in state receiving three kings from ancient lands of far or whatever, Orient lands of far, it requires a different costume.
Yeah, no, it makes a good case for the enter on a horse bit, yeah.
And I'm definitely putting this on our playlist of horse plays, plays that actually require your genuine horse, of which we are starting to build quite a good selection now. We've got 3 or 4 genuine horse plays that makes me very happy.
Was it Woodstock that has a scene where Is it in Woodstock? I'm thinking there's a
Yeah.
scene where there's evidently a horse on stage.
There's also a St. Paul play that requires the use of a horse to go between various stations because he falls off the horse. And there's other horses as well. Other horse plays are available. Eric,
Or you could just have coconuts.
we could, and at some point we almost certainly will. How are we feeling about the kings? They feel they've got the shorter lines. They feel a bit more following on from Herod. They're a slightly different proposition. Francis.
Yeah, one small thing I noticed was the second and third king all mentioned their gifts, the incense and the myrrh, but first king seemed to come empty-handed. There was no mention of frankincense in his in his speech, which I thought was a bit strange.
Maybe he's waiting for the Amazon delivery.
Could be.
Eric.
What I found interesting also was that they all kind of make predictions, like sort of prophecy, kind of. Which I mean, obviously they can't know when the kid is born, but I mean, obviously we know because we've read, the texts and so on. But for example, like the third king says, he'll be on bitter tree, he shall be bent, and so on and so forth, with bitter beating and blah blah blah. Which I mean, that happens in like 33 years from when the text actually happens, in theory.
I think actually because the first king obviously has the bit of saying hello other kings, which so he's got a little bit more, because they don't really interact. They sort of make speeches at each other, he's offering. It's partly down to actually the way it's spelt in your text. I've just lopped an e off. I will offer the red gold. So actually, he does offer a gift, but it's disguised in the way it was written in the text.
Oh.
So that's my bad. Alan.
Yeah, I mean, going back to Eric's point on the sort of degree of prophecy, I think every one of the end town plays we've looked at has contained elements of prophecy.
Mm.
And that's what gives structure to the, what could be called a cycle or could be called a creative narrative.
Mm. Yeah, and I mean it's slightly different to the way prophecy is used in the Old Testament to a degree, because the reason for having Old Testament material is to prophesy the coming of the Messiah, whereas here they're sort of utilising what came in the earlier plays. Perhaps that might be the argument. That might be overstated. I don't know. Other thoughts, Helen?
I have this vague memory that in some of these plays the kings are comic. Am I wrong about that?
I don't recall them being explicitly comic in any of the ones we've done so far. There may be that I've missed.
No, it may be that I'm misremembering this.
They definitely, at the moment, don't have the sort of inner life that Herod has, in the text we've so far looked at. But I think we need to get a little more evidence. But Lois, you want to say something first?
Well, it was just that I could sort of picture this must need quite a large acting area, because not only does Herod come in and go to presumably his scaffold and draw the curtain while he gets dressed, but then I picture these three kings coming from three different directions and sort of meeting in the center, right? So there's got to be a lot of space here.
Yeah, it's a question of precisely how much of the audience area and how the audience is arranged that they might be using, as opposed to having specific stage places as well. It might be that the way the space is arranged functions. So the acting areas could be quite small, but the overall use of the whole space that the performance is happening in, it seems like they're using as the maximum visible area. Is entirely what they're going for. That's interesting. Sorry, textual interest note I'll come up with later. Let us find more data for Herod as presumably changed and is coming back on. So we can assume the kings have sauntered off. Maybe the kings are still visible. Maybe they're doing a sort of circuit as they're making their journeying. But anyway, Herod must at this point reappear.
Now I reign like a king, arrayed full rich, rolled in rings and robes of array. Dukes with dents I drive into the ditch. My deeds be full doughty deemed be day. I shall marry to Hericticus, that Belvin amiss, and therein set their sacraments. False they are, I say. There is no lord in this world that looketh like me, Iris. For the lame Hericticus of the left lay, I am jollier than the jay. Strong thieves to stake, that well our laws break, on those wretches I will be wreak, and haunt him under hay. In kirtle of Kamaka king am I clad, cruel and curried in my crown, no, I sit here under Caesar in my set sad. Sorwin to sots such seed will I sow, boys now blabbin, boasting of a baron bad, in bed is born. Be beasts such boast is blow. I shall prune that paphawk and prevent him as a pad. Shields and spears shall I there sow. My knights shall riden on row. My children for to knave children for to quell. Be Mahud, ding duke of hell, sour death his life shall sell. Such threats would me throw. Steward bold, walk thou on wood, and wisely behold all about, if anything should grieve the king. Bring me tiding, if there be any doubt.
Lord King in crown, I go fro town, by Bankus Brown I will abide, and with ears list east and west, if any guest on ground ginneth glide.
And then the steward goes, and he meets the three kings somewhere, and says to the three kings,
King is three, under this tree, in this country, why will ye abide? Herod is king of this oneing, unto his dwelling now shall he glide.
Now lead us all to the king's hall, how it befall. We pray to thee, wits to weet, he may us pity, in flesh be gleet, God's fruit free.
Followeth instound upon this ground to the castle round. I shall you teach where King ginneth wide upon this tide. In pomp and pride his might ginneth reach. Sir King in throne here cometh anon by street and stone. Kings three they bear present. What they have meant, ne whether they are bent, I cannot see.
I shall him crave what they have, if they rave o'er waxen wood, I shall him reave. Here wits deave, here heads cleave, and sheden here blood.
Hail, be thou king in cage full high, hail, we nigh thine hall right nigh. Knowest thou aught that child sly? He is born hereabout. He is born of a maid young. He shall be king over every king. We go to seek that lovely thing. To him fain would I louth.
Balaam spoke in prophecy, a star should full lovely lighten upon maid Mary, comen of Jacob's kin. The child is born and lieth hereby, bloomed in a maiden's body. A star hath stricken upon the sky, and led us fair befen.
The star has led us out of the east, to seek a baron born best. He shall be king of might's mest, as Rothsey gin a spell. We be kings in way weary, Sir King, for thy courtesy. Tell us, to that child so lovely, in what town ginneth he dwell?
Ye three kings reckoned be row, lay down your words low. Such a carping is unknown, unreckoned in my reign. I am a king of high degree. There shall none be in above me. I have florins, and frith is free, parks and pounds plain. But go to find that ye seek, and if ye know such a leak, and ye find him, I shall you beseech, cometh again to me, and I shall be both blithe and bound, that all worship to him be done. With reverence I shall seek him soon, and honor him on knee. And therefore, kings, I you pray, when ye have done your journey, come again this same way, the truth to me to tell. Come and tell me as ye speed, and I shall right well your meed. With gold and treasure and rich weed, with furs rich and worth pell.
King, have good day. I go my way to seek Lord of Might. He shall be right, or leech.
King full stern, by field and fern I go. To seeken a king, he taketh warning in woe.
If we him find, our king full kind, be a May, from king and queen, we coming again this day.
Ah, fie on tales that I have been told, here before in my cruel knee. How should a barn wax so bold, be beasts if he born be? He is young, and I am old, and hardy king of a high degree. This day, though kings shall be called, if they come again, be me. My gods I shall upraise, a dark devil with falseness, I say, shall cast a mist in the king's eye. Be banks and be daily dray, that be dark, that shall come this way.
Go we to seek our lord and our liege. Yon star will us teach the ways full soon. To save us from mischief, God, I here beseech, unto his joys that we may reach. I pray him of this bone.
And we'll just pause there. So again, we've got lots of movement going on between these things. There's no stage directions. We've got a few stage directions, but not all of them. So it's like the steward. We do have stage direction saying he goes and finds the three kings. At no point do we have a stage direction saying he runs back to Herod with the three kings following him. So we don't have that stage direction. We don't have the exit or the semi-exit of the kings when Herod then turns to the audience and goes, "Oh, I've been lying. I'll get them." And we don't then have sort of the kings journeying to where Jesus is, which is where we're going into next. Yeah, it's really interesting that Herod does seem to have this inner life because he can just lie and openly lie and be sort of nicely evil, whereas the kings do still feel very presentational. You know, it feels like they move on wheels and get sort of pushed around, whereas Herod has this sort of life to him that I'm finding really interesting. In the same play, that there's different modes because the kings, the moment you talk to the kings, the lines get shorter and shorter and shorter, and those things. So thoughts on the room, Lois?
Yeah, I really wonder how to say those short lines. And I mean, it's not just that they sound so obviously like poems and not like speech. They sound almost like songs. You know, are they meant to be chanted? I really don't know how to play that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a genuine question. I don't know. Without I wonder if the shorter lines are easier to throw. I don't know or not whether that's or whether there's a convention of something going on there that we've lost the meaning of. I don't know the answers. Immediate answers to that, Lynn.
Yeah, I noticed that Herod is so emphatic about his own power and wealth, and I'm really wealthy and I'm really powerful and I throw dukes in the ditch or whatever. He's so insistent on it that my feeling is that he becomes a little self-undermining. Like, no, really, I'm powerful. I'm powerful. He's so insistent on it. It almost kind of makes you doubt why he has to keep repeating to us why he's so wealthy.
Yeah, I can't think of any real life examples of this at all. That's
not how real people are. So.
No, absolutely, no. Francis.
Yeah, I think all this sort of repetition about how rich and powerful Herod is obviously for the benefit of the audience. I don't know how dim-witted they were, contemporary audiences were at the time. But he comes across very much as a sort of pantomime villain.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he makes his boast at the beginning. That's what evil characters do. They make their boast. It's something we've had in stage directions before. It's what his kind of character does. It's explicitly what Herod almost always does. So pantomime is exactly right for Herod. Whereas the kings are perhaps more fairy godmothers.
Yeah.
You shall go to the ball. Short lines, everything rhymes. Helen.
Yeah, and if you're looking at pantomime, then the costume changes fits very well. I mean,
Yeah.
one thing about pantomime, that the costumes get bigger and bigger as the story goes on.
Absolutely. Eleanor, you're new and you've been listening so far. How any thoughts coming to you? I know I'm throwing this to you as a new person to the group, but I thought I'd throw you in at the deep end.
I find all the words, like obviously the different spellings, obviously from medieval to Old English, like really interesting. Because for me, in my modern head, I'm like, oh, that must mean something else. But then I read the chat and I'm like, oh, it doesn't. Like leech, for example. I was like, oh, that's a weird, sweet term of endearment if you're calling the baby that. Turns out it's not. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm getting this very wrong. But I'm just absolutely like all the different types of words and things. I'm just like, interesting.
Yeah, it's that problem of trying to decide when updating spelling is, when it's hitting a rhyme with another word that you can't make it work. So some of those, like leech and liege, I've sort of left, and that doesn't mean in performance we wouldn't. In performance, I think you'd let the actors make some choices. Basically, I think.
It's all that half rhyming as well that just sort of makes you go, okay, they tried to like fit something in. Like, oh, what rhymes with this? Halfly. Or we'll just put this in.
Well, the advantage with Middle English rhyming is they just change the ending of the word to make it rhyme.
Yep.
So they choose the word they wanted, and then they just change the vowel sound, the syllable at the end of the line, and just so they didn't worry about rhyming in the way that we do, because they just changed the word. Great. I highly recommend it, Alan.
Yeah, I mean the other thing beside the rhyme is the reliance on the alliteration, particularly in Herod's big speeches, which would be a pain if someone hasn't got very clear speech.
Well, I think it gives you those hard consonant sounds that you can really go for as well, that carry. I mean, that's a street theatre thing of, you want those hard sounds that are definitely going to bounce. I shall prune that pap hawk and prevent, it forces you to go for it in a way. Because remember, all of this must be bellowed. It's not designed to be spoken, it's designed to be shouted, which means it's a very different kind of audience experience. Eric?
I was just gonna say I'm interested in like the sort of descriptions, like they describe sort of going through fields or like the seneschal, Senescallus. I can't remember the name.
The steward, yes.
Yeah, the steward. Like describes walking along the river and then sort of like finding all the kings and stuff and that kind of thing. And it's just interesting, sort of the sort of pictures that they're trying to paint with words.
Because we don't know how much these productions would have done in terms of visual, representation. So it's got to be in the words. They may have done it as well. I mean, for all we know, there was a revolving depiction there go on as they travelled. They could have done. We don't know. We know that some stage effects are very elaborate. Okay, Eric, the moment you've been waiting for. You get to say some lines.
I have a question.
Yes, go for it.
What does the line about like "I pray him of this bone" mean?
Off the top of my head, I
think
Boom.
Boone. Yeah.
Boom.
Excellent. I was
To
going
rhyme with soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can anyone explain the stage direction?
Yes, I'm about to read it in English. I am reading all the Latin translate. I have actually spent some time translating them. It has been done. I haven't sent it because they're probably not entirely accurate, and I'll ask the room if they're right or wrong. But this is my Latin homework. It's great. So anyway, a bit of a location change has occurred either during the king's speech that he's just done, or in between. There might be music as well. We have no indications of music for this play, but it's not impossible. So then the kings go to Jesus, and the first king says,
Hail be thou, King cold-clad, hail with maiden's milk fed, hail, I come to thee with golden glade. As we's writing bear it record, gold is the richest metal, and to wearing most royal. Gold I give thee in this hall, and know thee for my lord.
Lord, I kneel upon my knee, sweet incense I offer to thee. Thou shalt be the first of high degree, none so mickle of might in God's house as men shall see. Thou shalt honor the Trinity, three persons in one God free, and all one Lord of might.
Lord, I kneel down by thy bed, in maiden's flesh art thou hid. Thy name shall be wide read, and king over all kings. Bitter myrrh to thee I bring, for bitter dents on thee they shall ding, and bitter death shall be thy ending, and therefore I make mourning.
Kings kind from the fend, God you defend. Homeward ye wend, and to your places ye lend, that ye should tend.
Now have we the place found. To Herod go we this dound. With our words we were bound, that we should come again. Go we apace and say our speech, for we have found our Lord and Liege. All the truth we will him teach, how the king is born of a queen.
Mine head is heavy as lump of lead, but if I sleep I am adread my wit shall fare the worse. I wax heavy in limb and flank. Down I lay me upon this bank, under this bright star ywis.
Brother, I must lie thee by. I will never go over this sty till I have a sleep. The young king and his mother Mary save us all from every villainy. Now Christ us save and keep.
Such heaviness have us caught. I must drink with you a draught, to sleep a little while. I am heavy, head and foot. I should stumble at rest and root, and I should go a mile.
and the kings sleep, and an angel appears, saying to them,
Ye kings on this hill, work ye not after Herod's will. If ye do, he will you kill this day or night. My lord you sent his tiding to rest you kings in rich clothing. And when ye risen and go to your dwelling, take home the way full right. Whether that ye be waken or sleep, my Lord God shall you keep. In good time ye did down dreep to take your rest. Herod to the devil he tryst, to mar you in a murk mist. My Lord God is full of list, to glad you for his guest. And therefore, kings, when ye rise, wendeth forth, be ways wise. There you shall be set in size in diverse land. Father of God, in all thing hath you granted his sweet blessing. He shall you save from all shending with his right hand.
and then let the kings get up. And the first king says,
A bright star led us unto Bethlehem. A brighter thing I saw in a dream, brighter than the sunbeam. An angel I saw right here, the fair flower that here gan fall. From Herod king he gan us call. He taught us home till our hall, away by another near.
I saw a sight. Mine heart is light to wenden home. God full of might hath us dight from devil's doom.
Our God I bless, he sent us iwis, his angel bright. Now we wake, the way to take, home full right.
And there the play ends, or does it? I'll come back to that question later. Yeah, we've got an angel. Angel appears. We've got sort of inferred stage directions of the kings all have to go and have a little nap. They're all suddenly tired. I love the way they're just suddenly tired. Just, I'm knackered now. They all lie down, and we get this lovely moment with the angel. It's interesting. The kings their lines seem to get slightly longer the closer they approach Jesus. I don't know if that's indicative of anything or not. Yeah, thoughts from play 18. Who wants to leap in? Eric.
It's very sort of like structurally symmetrical, kind of. Like you've got the entrance of Herod, then you've got the entrance of the three kings in order, and then you've got like Mary in the middle for like a teeny weeny bit, and then you've got the three kings again, and it's sort of very. It's not, like, okay, obviously this is I don't know, the 1500s, 1600s, so they don't really
earlier.
Yeah, they don't interact with each other. They're just like sort of, yeah, there.
Yeah, it's Mary. I mean, you must be exhausted doing Mary there. I mean, that was such a huge role, and it is that question of in the playing of it, you know, who's getting the big roles. You know, you get someone good to play Herod. The kings, middling, and then bit part Mary in this particular play, as opposed to other plays where Mary is the big part. But here, this is very much someone who probably can learn 5 lines and stay sat down with a baby. That's as much walking and talking. Not the actor for this does not need to do walking and talking at the same time. Helen.
The thing that interested me about this play was how closely it stuck to the gospel. I think it's St. Luke, isn't it, this particular one? I mean, so many of the other plays we've looked at have had some very extraneous matter, what you might call uncanonical. But this one is, apart from the steward, who is, you know, fairly reasonable addition, and doesn't have what you might call a great deal of agency. It is very, very much stuck with the text.
Yeah, I believe it's Matthew, actually, according to a note I've got here.
Is it now?
Yeah, it is. I know. That was something we were all
shepherds
worried
are
about.
Luke, then. I think the shepherds are Luke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I think they were. I can't remember. You know, it's from someone. Yeah, you're right. It is just getting down to the business of plots, and you know, you need the steward to sort of move things along a bit. He's exposition, isn't he? And action movement. Francis.
Yeah, I noticed Joseph doesn't get a look in this play. I mean, he's completely absent. You know, he doesn't even get to say, you know, hello, kings, thank you for coming, sort of thing.
I think he's taking the presents. You know, he's presumably again. Whoever was staging this presumably does not trust most of their actors. There's probably a few people playing sheep, you know, and those things. Lois.
I just thought a lot of the writing is very beautiful. It's, I mean, it's an extremely poetic play. It just seems odd for something that's meant to be kind of bellowed out, and lovely touches. I mean, I like the bit where I say I'm going to sleep under this star. You know, it's just such a lovely idea. Of course, the star is there, but to make you so aware of it, I suppose, in fact, it really was there. They probably had something hanging up above.
Yeah, it is. Yes, there's some really nice, sweet moments with the kings. You know, so you know, Mary save us all from every villainy. You know, and all those lovely little moments. Yeah. Alan, did I see a hand earlier?
Yeah, I mean the slight counter thought possibly on the fact that Mary has only got a very brief bit in this role. It could be the suggestion you've made that if this was done by a different group of people, that they can find someone who can manage the few lines. Or it could be if this is done as part of a sequence with the 2 or 3 preceding plays, which are very Mary heavy, that in fact this one is there to give her a rest.
Yeah, it really does depend on what the original circumstances were, of which we unfortunately have no particularly helpful evidence. I mean, the thing is, a lot of the earlier Mary materials from a totally different play anyway. So, but there were quite Mary-heavy stuff from what we putatively think was the original cycle that a lot of this material was from. I mean, for all we know, Mary had more to say, but it didn't make the cut into this volume. I mean, that's the other possibility, is that editorially something went missing or was removed. Eric.
Well, I guess also narratively, for example, before she gave birth, Mary kind of like all the plays were very sort of intent on proving how pure she was, how she was a virgin, and this is actually like the sort of son of God and that kind of thing. Whereas now they don't really have anything else to prove. There's nothing else for her to do but bask, kind of thing.
Well, yes, indeed. The next play, or perhaps the previous play discussed, is going to touch on Mary a lot more. Any additional thoughts on play 18 before we move on? No, it's a very simple tale, told quite nicely. There's lots of nice points in that. I'm quite pleased with that. But we're going to go on to the... Oh, Francis.
Yeah, just one thing that really made me laugh was that when the kings greeted the baby Jesus, the third king sort of had this terrible prophecy of these things that were just going to these terrible things that were going to happen to this newborn baby, and Mary doesn't even react.
Yeah, it's hi. You've just been born. You're going to die.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Alan.
An answer on that, and Francis and I did, because I'd not read ahead. You could actually do the third king as Fraser.
Oh,
Private Fraser.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Doomed.
You're doomed. You're all doomed.
Okay. On that note, let's go on to the Purification, as it is labelled, or has been labelled by people. None of these plays, I think, have original titles in the original actual text. These are all from different editions that people have called it, which is reasonable because that's sort of what the play is about. So we actually have stage directions in English as well. It's a lovely novelty. Whether that says something about the play or not, I don't know. So Simeon, priest, enter into the, presumably he has a temple space all of his very own.
I have been priest in Jerusalem here, and taught God's law many a year, desiring in all my mend that the time when they hand near, in which God's Son shall appear in earth to take mankind. For I died that I might find my Saviour with mine eye to see, but that it is so long behind, it is great discomfort unto me. For I wax old and want my might, and begin to fail my sight. The more I sorrow this tide, save only as I tell you right, God of his grace hath me height, that blissful birth to bide. Wherefore now here beside, to Sancta Sanctorum will I go, to pray God to be my guide, to comfort me after my woe.
And here Simeon kneeleth down and continues talking.
Ah, good God in Trinity, how long shall I abide thee, till that thy son dost thou send, that I in earth might him see. Good Lord, consider to me, I draw fast to an end, that on my strength throw me wend. Good Lord, send down thy Son, that I, with my full mend, might worship him if I can, both with my feet and hands too, to go to him and handle also, my even to see him in certain, my tongue for to speak to him too, and all my limbs to work and do, in his service to be bane. Send forth thy Son, my Lord sovereign, haste thee anon without tarrying, for through this world I would be fain, it is contrary to my living.
Simeon, leave thy careful staven, and for thy prayer is heard in heaven. To Jerusalem fast now wend, and there shalt see full even that he is God's son, for to Naaman. In the temple there thou dwellest in the darkness of original sin, he shall make light and clarify. And now the deed shall begin hath bespoken, which hath bespoken by prophecy.
Ah, thank thee, Lord of grace, that hath granted me time and space to live and bide this. And I will walk now to the place where I may see thy son's face, which is my joy and bliss. I was never lighter a wis, to walk never here beforn, for a merry time now is, where God, my Lord, is born.
Oh, hail, Simeon! What tidings with you? Why make ye all this mirth now? Tell me, whither ye fare?
And prophetess, and ye wist how, so should ye. I make a vow, and all manner men that are, for God's Son, as I declare, is born to buy mankind. Our Saviour is coming to cease our work, care. Therefore have I great mirth to wend, and that is the cause I haste me unto the temple him to see. And therefore let me not, good friend.
Now blessed be God in Trinity, sin that time has come to be. And with you will I wend to see my Saviour end, and worship him also with all my will and my full mend. As I am bound, now will I do.
And they go for a walk to the temple. And there's already been, once again, some walking. So Simeon does this little speech about walking along, and he walks along and he bumps into Anna. And so once again, they're then moving to another location. So it does feel like the staging for these seem to be across multiple staging areas, but then they're probably walking amongst the audience to get to those places, perhaps, or it's a very long stage with lots of sort of mini stations within it. The stagecraft seems quite similar between the text that we've got here. I'm quite liking his his speeches there, and the angel and there it has a nice flow to it. Thoughts about the play so far?
This bit in particular, this may be so far left field, is giving me very much, it's AD BC vibes by Matt Berry, particularly Simeon, and it's basically the innkeeper's story, and there's a song right at the beginning, and I don't know, it just feels like the song goes on about like, oh, I'm so down on my luck, so Lord, just let me die because no one's coming to my inn, and I need to pay my rent because Herod or Iscariot is going to get me. And basically Simeon right at the beginning, when he's like, oh Lord, like show me something, show me Jesus, it definitely gives me like that type of vibe in terms of comedy. But I don't think obviously that's what they were going for in 1400s medieval England.
No, possibly not. I mean, it's an interesting question about him because he is basically saying, once he comes, I can die. That would be great. And there is a certain cheerfulness to it. It's not a sad thing that this character is, once this play is over, going to expire. I mean, we don't see it. He said, I don't know, actually, I haven't got that far. I don't think you ever do. But it is, it's an interesting thing that they do a lot. I mean, there's lots of versions of this play. They're very keen on this purification thing, which is a not unproblematic subject. His characterization, there might be something open-hearted about. He might be slightly comic, but not in a laughing at him way. I don't think that's the framing for him.
No, it's a lot more serious compared to pantomime villain or
pantomime absolutely comedy. Yeah. But I think we've got to like him. Francis?
Yeah, I've always found Simeon a poignant figure, but I've only read about him in the versions of the Bible. He doesn't want to die before seeing the Messiah, and I've always found that a very sort of poignant, slightly moving idea.
He's been waiting. He's been waiting such a long time.
And he's waiting. He's about to be rewarded.
Other thoughts? Okay, so some walking's going on. So they both Anna and Simeon get to the temple. So action continues.
In the temple of God who understood, this day shall be offered with mild mood, which is that King of all, that shall be scorned and shed his blood, and after dying on the rood, withouten cause to call, for whose passion there shall befall such a sorrow, both sharp and smart, that as a sword pierce it shall, even through his mother's heart.
Yeah, that shall be as I well find, for redemption of all mankind, that bliss for to restore, which hath be lost for out of mind, as be our father of our own kind, Adam and Eve before.
Joseph, my husband, withouten miss, you wot that 40 days near is, sith my son's birth full right. Wherefore we must to the temple, I wis, therefore to offer our son of bliss, up to his father in height, and I in God's sight purified for to be, in clean soul with all my might, in presence of the Trinity.
To be purified have ye no need, nor thy son to be offered, so God me speed. For first thou art full clean, undefiled in thought and deed, and another thy son, withouten dread, is God and man to mean. Wherefore it needed not to be, but to keep the law on Moses wise. Wherefore we shall take us between doves and turtles for to sacrifice.
And at that point, they go to the temple. So they've presumably entered into the playing space or the audience area as Mary and Joseph are approaching the temple. At this point, they reach the temple. That's the stage direction. They get to the temple, and Simeon and Anna turn to them and say,
All hail, my kindly comforter.
All hail, mankind's creator.
All hail, thou Lord of might.
All hail, mankind's saviour.
All hail, both king and emperor.
All hail, as it is right.
All hail also Mary bright.
All hail, salver of sickness.
All hail, lantern of light.
All hail, thou mother of meekness.
Simeon, I understand and see that bothing of my son and me ye have knowing clear, and also in your company my son desireth for to be, and therefore have him here.
and Simeon welcomes Jesus.
Welcome, Prince without peer. Welcome, God's own Son. Welcome, my Lord so dear. Welcome with me to one.
And here we have a moment in Latin, of which I'm not sure whether Simeon is supposed to say the Latin or whether it's just a note on the material. We have received your mercy, Lord. That's a psalm, I think. Anyway, text continues in English.
Lord God in majesty, we have received this day of thee, in midst of thy temple here, such great mercy as we may see. Therefore thy name of great degree be worshipped in all manner, over all this world, both far and near, even on to the utterest end. For now is man out of danger, and a rest and peace to all mankind.
And again, we go to stage direction. Presumably they're singing the psalm. So the psalm singing every verse. And there will Simeon playeth with the child while the singing's going on. And when the psalm is ended, he saith,
Now let me die, Lord, and hence pace. For I, thy servant in this place, have seen my Saviour dear, which thou hast ordained before the face of all mankind, this time of grace, openly to appear. Thy light is shine and clear, to all mankind's salvation. Mary, take your child now here, and keep well. This man is salvation.
Nay, I wrote near to die also, for more than 80 years and 2, this time have bade to see. And since that is to come thereto, what God's will is with me to do, right even so, more it be.
Take here these candles 3, Mary, Simeon, and Anne, and I shall take the full right to me to offer our child up then.
Highest Father, God of power, your own dear Son I offer you here, as I to your law am sworn. Receive thy child in glad manner, for he is the first, this child so dear, that of his mother is born. But thou I offer him you beforn. Good Lord, yet give me him again, for my comfort were truly lorn, if we should for long asunder been.
And Mary layeth the child on the altar.
Sir Priest of the Temple, now have here 5 pence unto you, our child again to take. It is the law, as ye wot how.
Joseph, ye and thou do right now as for your child's sake, but other offering yet must ye make. And therefore take your son, Mary, in much joy ye may awake, whilst he is in your company.
Thereto I am full glad and fain for to receive my child again, for else were I to blame, and afterward for to be bane to offer to God in full certain, as in my son's name, with fowls both wild and tame, for in God's service I shall never irk.
Lo, Mary, have here those saying to do thy duties of holy kirk.
And there Mary offereth fowls onto the altar and saith,
O mightful Father, merciful King, receiveth now this little offering, for it is the first in degree that your little child so young presenteth today be my showing to your high majesty. Of his simple poverty be his devotion and my good will. Upon your altar receive me, your son's offering, as it is skill.
and there the play ends, or does it? I think more likely that is where the play is cut for placement within this text. I feel that there's some exit business required there that you would have had in the original. It's really keen on ritual, isn't it? It's it's all solemnity, the room for music with the psalms, the psalm singing going on there. Now you dismiss your servant, and the lighting of candles. I quite like the administrative notice there, Joseph going, let me just pay you for this little, that's the law, and it's going, yes, well done. And that feels like a nod to the audience at home, going, right, remember that there are dues to be paid for our various rituals. Lois.
Yeah, but the one touch that goes completely against all of that is the bit about Simeon playing with the child. I think that's delightful, but I've never seen that in any other version. That I think he's given the child, that bit where he doesn't just sort of accept, he receives him and he's holding him. I take it and playing with him, and then he gives him back eventually.
I think from our exploration of Chester that I don't know if there's a stage direction that literally says he dandles the child, but I think there is a similar moment in Chester. I don't know of the others because we haven't done them yet in session, but I suspect that's a thing. I suspect that's a Simeon business. But I could be wrong on that. I could be wrong. But it is a lovely moment. I think there's the ritual, and then there's these nice humanizing moments that go with it that are quite sweet. Eric?
There are two things I want to mention. Well, the first one is like Simeon sort of goes, "Oh yeah, this kid is gonna die for us, yay!" And then sort of later on, Mary puts a bird or something on the altar, so basically like a sacrifice, which, as far as I understand, is like not exactly Christian in like modern day Christianity. Like in modern day Christianity would say that that's pagan.
Well,
you're within a Jewish pagan society where the sacrificing of turtles and turtle doves.
Yes, the sacrificing of turtle doves. They don't sacrifice turtles, to my knowledge.
Can't break the shells.
No, I mean they're an absolute sod to get into. Yes, any reference in early plays.
I think two doves are in the gospel.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's doves all over the place.
No, but I mean, I think in this particular story of Simeon, they bring doves.
Yeah, I seem to recall it in the other versions as well. I think doves. I think it's also a very nice bit of stage business. If you've got doves that you can release, and they'll presumably go to their local dovecot, and it'll be very nice.
The 5 pence, I think, though, is a medieval edition.
That feels like a nod to your local church, Francis.
Yeah, I was wondering about the dramatic purpose of Anna, the prophetess. I don't remember her in the Bible story about Simeon. So I was just kind of wondering, what's she doing here? She doesn't seem to add anything dramatically, except, to give Simeon a sounding board.
I was surprised they popped her in as well.
Yeah.
Being like, oh, they've actually given her like a female, like another role other than Mary in this piece. I was a bit surprised about that.
She does turn up pretty comprehensively in other mystery plays, so I'm assuming that it is from source. I do not know the original source material particularly well, so I can't comment at this time. I'm sure there may be data that the world can throw at us, but she seems to be a definite figure that they put in there. That she is a prophetess as well, so she knows this stuff. Eric.
Well, doesn't Simeon mention somewhere along, like before he meets Anna and so on, that his light has started to fade? So maybe like supposedly he can't see very well. So maybe he needs a bit of help to get, like, they just wanted to give a part to an actor maybe. So like they just sort of went,
Yeah, I'm wondering if in other versions there is a boy. Or if that's another random person who's blind. There might not be. I could be making that up. Anna, the prophetess, does apparently also derive from Luke, so it is actually biblical. So it's not from an apocryphal random later source or anything like that. Learn a new thing every day. It's that whole. There is always that slight problem for us today of Mary having being presented to be purified after giving birth, which is just a little awkward for us to sort of embrace fully as this sort of lovely moment. But of course she doesn't need it because she is not foul. It's the way they always talking about being foul. Or being befouled after giving birth, which it doesn't land in a particularly nice way. But we've discussed actually the more problematic elements of Mary's sequence and what we might do with that in the past. So maybe that's part of that question. Alan.
Yeah, I mean one word that came up that Francis has queried, which was FOWRTE in the sequence with Joseph.
Yeah, the fourth.
In the context, you'd have to be careful not to get too Ronnies about it, because that's the fourth candle.
Yes, it is the fourth. Yes, textual things like that do keep in the chat because the audience at home don't care. They don't. I mean, if you do care, put it in the comments. I'll find out about it in about a year's time when I notice. It'll be delightful. Eric.
I was gonna say that compared to like the other plays that we did, like the previous sort of batch, where like Mary and like the demons were being chased around, were running around the altar or something, and that kind of thing, and like drinking
the
stuff.
Really judgmental, the really patriarchally judgmental play. Yes.
Yeah, like these ones are sort of tame considerably. I don't know. Maybe it's just
a baby. There's a baby and everyone likes each other. I mean, that's the fundamental difference. The other play, the Trial of Mary and Joseph, is you've got antagonists saying, you were made pregnant by your husband who got a bit, handsy, and let's be really judgmental and make you walk around the altar 7 times after drinking stuff. It's a weird play. Yeah, you missed out, Eleanor. It was a thing. It was a thing.
The night.
Yeah, it was. So yeah, any additional thoughts before we go into the final cheerful happy hour of this session? No. Okay. So I stated, that play, The Purification, has ended. It may have ended. There may have been more. It also may have been played 17 and got moved because the Purification sometimes happens before the Magi in some sequences apparently. There's a footnote I found somewhere, so maybe there's some moving around, or maybe there was a different one in the earlier sequence, because it's highly possible that where we're going into play 20 now is directly runs on from play 18. So as we left it, we had this moment when the kings have all exited the space. Because one of the indications here is we have this slightly odd stage direction at the very beginning of this text. So this is play 20, generally labelled as the slaughter of the innocents / death of Herod. And we have this stage direction. So then looking back, the steward goes to Herod. So like the steward's been in the middle of, so there might be something missing here of the steward, doing something. It's a slightly odd, it's a slightly difficult line to pass. So as I say, this might follow on directly from play 18, it might not. But either way, the steward goes to Herod now, and everything's going to get really cheerful.
Lord, I have walked by dale and hill, and waited, as it is your will. The kings 3 stealen away full still through Bedlam land. They will never so mote thee come in the land of Galilee, for to see your fair city, ne deeds of your hand.
I ride on my rowel, rich in my reign, ribs full of reel with rape shall I rend. Poppets and pawhawks I shall putten in pain. With my spear, praven, pitchin, and to pend, the gums with gold crowns, nay, get never again. To seek those thoughts, so thoughts, sons shall I send. Do Hollet Houghton, Hobart and Hain, when there here bairns bleed, under cradle bend, sharply I shall him shend. The knave children that be in all Israel country, they shall have bloody blay, for one I called unkind. It is told in Gru, his name shall be Jesu found. To have him gone, hew the flesh with the bone, and give him wound. Now can knights, kith your crafts, and killeth knave children, casteth him in clay, showeth on your shoulders shields and shafts, shapeth among shell trowns a shilling shrey, doth rounces rennen with raking rafts, till ribs be too rent with a reed ray. Let no bairn believe on bet bafts, till a beggar bleed be beasts bay. Mahood that best may. I warn you, my knights, a barn is born, I plights. Would climb king and knights, and let my lordly lay. Knights wise, chosen full choice, arise, arise, and take your toll, and every page of 2-year-old of ever ye swage slayeth ilka fool. One of him all was born in a stall, fools him call king in a crown. With bitter gall he shall downfall, he might in hall shall never go down.
I shall slay Charles and Quenis with Thurles. Here, knave Gurles, I shall steek. Forth will I speed, to dun him bleed, thou Gurles greed. What we shall be wreak.
For swords sharp as a harp, queens shall carp, and of sorrow sing bairns young. They shall be stung through liver and lung, we shall 'em sting.
Awake, Joseph, and take thy wife, thy child also, rid be life. For King Herod with sharp knife his knights doth send. The Father of heaven hath to thee sent into Egypt, that thou be bent. For cruel knights thy child have meant with sword to slay and shend.
Awake, good wife, out of your sleep, and of your child taketh good keep, while I your clothes lay on heap, and truss him on the ass. King Herod the child will slow, therefore to Egypt we must go. An angel of God said me so, and therefore let us pass.
And indeed, presumably, Joseph exits. So yes, we have this random moment in the middle of all of this. Again, no stage directions to help move things along. If this is a continuation of the last play, Joseph and Mary are presumably over on some random part of the performance space. The angel shifts attention over to them while the soldiers make their way to kill lots of things. In the chat we had Alan's comment, alliteration's artful aid. There's a hell of a lot of alliteration there. There's an awful lot of sounds and words that are quite difficult to pass. We've got poppets and paphawks I particularly like. I like poppets and paphawks. And there's lots of very aggressive, sharp, killy language. Till ribs be to rent with reed ray. It's nice chap. We have the unhelpfulness of here knave girls, which in this context means boys. It's not a helpful word there. It's not spelt like the modern girls, and it's a very confusing sound world on that front. Though the general attackiness of it all is all there. Alan.
I also found it interesting that the line length changed quite radically about halfway through Herod's speech. Where it, from a relatively long line, we then got into these very short, sharp phrases, which all do rhyme, but it's an interesting one, and whether that's an indication of, him losing his rag a bit more.
It's possible, because he goes from a long line to a short line to a long line to a short line, so there does seem to be some structural thing going on there that's really interesting. For those who are wondering, as it is told in Gru, that's Greek. Anyone wondered on that one? I know what I was going. It's told in Gru. Yes, we all know what it's like in Gru. They don't understand things over in Gru. How you passed that one today, I don't know. Helen.
And once again, you've got the confusion with Islam, between Judaism and Islam. You've got Mahound puts in a guest appearance.
Herod is always calling by Mahound. It seems to be a generic thing that tyrants do, and it's a fascinating confusion of people just getting things wrong. Other thoughts about this continuation of Herod? Eric?
I was just going to say that those short lines might just like sort of, because he's barking orders, arise, and take your toll, and every page it's like very quick, sort of all action verbs and stuff. It's not sort of description anymore.
Yeah, there's something spittle inflected by that, isn't there? It's very, especially with the way everything's very pointy around the edges of his words. And we have 2 soldiers listed here, only 2. I don't think we get more later on. We might do. Other plays go for more soldiers, but we consistently only have 2. So it might be the playing spaces are not large. There might be lots of them and they're spread out, but there never seems to be that many people on them at any one time. So that's an interesting one. Other thoughts? I mean, we know where the story's going. It feels very clear. No other thoughts? He fished, and caught nothing. Okay, we're going to change locations. So the stage direction roughly says, then the knights go to kill the male children. And the first woman, so we have the women on the whatever space they're on, saying...
Long lunging have I lorn. Alas, why was my baron born? With sweeping sword now he is shorn, the heed right from the neck. Shank and shoulder is all torn, soren I see behidden and beforn, both midday and at morn, of my life I nay reck.
Certainly, I say the same. Gone is all my good game. My little child lieth all lame that lulled on my paps. My 40 weeks groaning hath sent me 7 years sorrowing. Mickle is my mourning, and right hard are mine haps.
Lord enthroned, maketh no moan, queens gin to groan. In world about, upon my spear, a girl I bear, I dare well swear, let mothers hout.
Lord, we han sped as ye bad, barons been blad and lying in ditch, flesh and vein have followed pain, and ye shall reign evermore rich.
I'm just going to pause before we go further into that scene. So, yeah, we kind of don't have in this text the actual slaughter of the innocents. There's no going in, finding them that we get in other plays. It doesn't mean that it wasn't there, but maybe it's been bridged by some stage direction there. But it literally just goes to the women lamenting their dead children, and then immediately we jump to the soldiers returning to Herod. So huge sort of narrative gap there. Maybe it's all happening while the angel's talking to Joseph. It's an interesting juxtaposition. Lois, then Francis.
I just wondered, does one of those soldiers actually come on with a child impaled on his spear?
Could be.
Upon my spear a girl I bear.
Yeah.
That was one my question.
I think the answer is yes. That does look to be, yeah. They come on to Herod going, hey, look what we've got here. Wow, that's an image.
And the others are all chucked in a ditch.
Yeah.
How would they have actually done that? What sort of, how would they have made this dead body of a child?
Stuffed doll. I mean, they could be quite small.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can disguise it with swaddling clouts and things like that.
Oh, yes, cool.
So how much you see there. I mean, we know that they can be quite, these can be quite extensive in the way these things are staged. But wow, that's quite an image, actually, for teasing out there. Ooh. We've got quite a few Slaughter of the Innocents plays to go through, so it's quite a popular one that survives quite a few variations, along with Abraham and Isaac. So killing children seems to be a popular survival subject for these plays. I don't know why. I don't know why. Eric.
I was just going to say that bit, like, about the sort of descriptions of that sort of reminded me of the Iliad, like sort of when they finally break into Troy and start killing people, like, for well, not for no reason, but like without any limits, and then they sort of decide to throw Astyanax from the walls and bash his brains out and stuff, which is very graphic. Like in the whole 7 years of mourning and stuff, that is very Greek tragedy.
Yeah, that's some. Yeah, it's interesting that the play is not lingering too much on the women in this play, but they are creating these images. That yeah. Okay, that's that's the thing. Okay, let's move forward. So Herod is being presented with his two soldiers with evidence of their actions. I suppose from a soldier's point of view, that's something you want to demonstrate. Go Herod.
Ye shall have steeds to your meads, lands and leads, frith and fee. Well have ye wrought. My foe is sought, to death is he brought. Now come up to me. In seat now I am set as king of mights most. All this world for their love to me shall they lout. Both of heaven and of earth and of hell cost, for deign of my dignity they have of me doubt. There is no lord like on life to me worth a toast, neither king nor kaiser in all this world abought. If any briber do brag or blow against my boast, I shall wrap thou rebauds and rake them on wrought with my bright brand. There shall be neither Kaiser nor king, but that I shall him down ding, lest then he at my bidding be buxom to mine hand. Now, my gentle and courteous knights, hark to me this sound. Good time soon methinketh at dinner that we were. Smartly therefore set a table anon, here full sound covered with a cover's cloth, with rich worthy fare. Service for the loveliest lord that living is on ground. Best meats and worthiest wines, look that ye none spare. Thou, that a little pint should cost £1,000. Bring always of the best, for cost take ye no care. Anon that it be done.
My lord, the table is ready dight. Here is water, now wash forthright. Now blow up, minstrel, with all your might. The service cometh in soon.
Now am I set at meat. Sorry, Mr. Robert.
I think what we should have is did have a call for the minstrel, so there we are. That's as close to a minstrel as we get.
Now am I set at meat and worthily served at my degree. Come forth, knights, sit down and eat, and be as merry as ye can be.
Lord, at your bidding we take our seat. With hearty will obey we thee. There is no lord of might so great. Through all this world, in no country, in worship to abide.
I was never merrier here before since the day I was born. Than I am now right in this morn. In joy I 'gin to glide.
Enter Death.
Oh, I heard a page make cressing a pride. All princes he passeth, he wenneth of Pausty. He wenneth to be the worthiest of all this world wide. King over all kings, that page wenneth to be. He sent into Bedlam to seek on every side Christ for to quell, if they might him see. But of his wicked will, learn, yet he lied. God's Son doth live, there is no Lord but he. Over all lords he is king. I am Death, God's messenger. Almighty God hath sent me here, yon lorden to slay, withouten dweer, for his wicked working. I am sent for God, Death is my name. All thing that is on ground I wield at my will, both man and beast and birds, wild and tame. When that I come to, with death I do them kill. Herb, grass and trees strong, take him all in same. Yea, the great mighty oaks with my dent I spill. What man that I wrestle with, he shall right soon have shame. I give him such a trumpet, he shall evermore lie still. But death can no sport. Where I smite, there is no grace. But after my stroke, man hath no space to make amends for his trespass. But God him grant comfort. Oh, see how proudly yon caitiff sits at meat. Death hath he no doubt. He wenneth to live evermore. To him will I go and give him such an heat that all the leeches of the land his life shall never restore. Against my dreadful dents it vaileth never to plead, or him I part fro, I shall him make full pour. All the blood of his body I shall him out sweet, but now I go to slay him with strokes sad and sore. This tide, both him and his knights all, I shall him make to me but thrall. With my spear slay him I shall, and so cast down his pride.
And we'll just pause there before Herod continues. Herod has not heard any of this. Herod and his knights are having a lovely meal, having a lovely chat, and then Death turns up. Isn't Death fabulous? I mean, he's always such a delight. He's going to give them a dent with his dreadful dart. So death doesn't necessarily carry a scythe. He might just be carrying a whacking great stick, and he just gives you a poke and you're dead. So he'll give you such a trepid, he'll just whack you one. So yeah, he's dreadful dense. All the blood of his body, I shall him out sweat. So yeah, he's going to make you die in some horrible ways, possibly. Nice chap. Francis.
It seems to me that the figure of death is a sort of dramatic device, because in the Bible, there's no, as far as I remember, there's no consequences for Herod for the massacre of the Holy Innocents. He essentially gets away with it, at least in, on earth. Who knows what happened in the afterlife? So it just seems to me that death here fulfills a sort of the audience's need to see some sort of retribution, or to have the feeling that Herod's going to get his comeuppance sooner or later.
Yeah, it's mentioned that he dies soon after, I think, in the Bible, but the actual talking about how he dies and his death is elaborated in other sources. In fact, it's probably the most historically accurate element of the whole Herod outcome, because he does. I seem to recall he dies in quite a horrible way, and sort of his body wastes and dissolves in all sorts of unpleasant fashions. So this bit is, although I don't think the sources ever mentioned death turns up at a meal or anything. But maybe he did. Lynn.
It is really a great dramatic device, though, as Francis points out, to have perhaps on one part of the stage Herod partying it up, eating and drinking, saying, "I was never this merry since the day I was born. Woohoo! My enemies are defeated. My power is consolidated." Just celebrating and then death over here. That's what he thinks. So, yeah, the juxtaposition is cool.
Oh, it's fab, because he's talking about pride. That's what brought him here. He was drawn here by the pride of these people. And yeah, Herod, the moment the babies are killed, he just says, "Aren't I great? I'm still so great. I'm the greatest. I'm so wonderfully great. Let's have a party." And blowing of horns, the minstrels blowing, that's going to perhaps be echoed in a moment. In an additional stage direction, it's just. I'm just going. It's great. It's really, really great. It's a great sequence. Alan.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether, in fact, while we know that the appearance of death is non-canonical, whether this actually ties in with church monuments that you would see at the time with the memento mori. The skulls on memorials.
Yeah, there's a lot of crossover with morality and Dance of Death material that we've got. Lois.
Yeah, I think some of that derives from things like, "Oh, death, where is thy sting?" doesn't it? Because you don't normally get personification in the Bible, but lines like that suggest that there is a figure of death with a sting, which would be a dart or something.
Yeah. There's a great similarity between all the medieval deaths. I say all of them. We've got three, or at least almost medieval deaths. So, and their dialogue is surprisingly similar. So they're all great to have about. Okay, so we've got it's what's great about this scene is you've got music, you've got a visual element to it. You've got whatever the costume death. The costume designer's joy is death here. What can you do with death? Eric, did I see a hand?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it's a big contrast to Simeon going, "Oh yes, I can die now."
Yeah, that's true.
Nice.
Yeah, because presumably he has a nice death, whereas don't get the impression this is going to be a nice death. Eleanor, as again, mostly watching this, how are you feeling about Herod's possible death here?
Well, death doesn't pull punches, does he? In that whatsoever. It's so, I don't know what it is. If it's just death seems to come up quite a lot in medieval sort of ways, whether it's like devils or in Mama's plays, there's always the canonical idea of death that always comes up, or it's just yeah, it just seems to come up quite a lot and they love it. And compared to later plays or ways it's written, medieval, I mean, I'm only going off one play, to be very honest, but it seems to be like, we are going to go full into this and we are going to just write the most horrendous stuff and we love it. But also it feels a bit like morality, like just do good things, people, with the church, and then you won't get this horrible grisly death.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've heard from Death. Herod hasn't heard from Death. Herod is still having his party. Herod and first and second soldier, party away, please.
Now, kind knights, be merry and glad, for all good diligence, with all good diligence, show now some mirth. For by gracious Mahood, more mirth never I had, nay, never more joy was in from time of my birth. For now my foe is dead, and prended as a pad. Above me is no king, on ground ne'er on girth. Mirth therefore make ye, and be right nothing sad. Spare neither meat nor drink, and spare for no dearth of wine nor of bread. For now I am a king alone, so worthy as I may there be none. Therefore, knights, be merry each one, for now my foe is dead.
When the boys sprawled at my spear's head, by Sathanas, our sire, it was a goodly sight. A good game it was, that boy for to shend, that would have been our king and put you from your right.
Now, truly, my lord the king, we had been on hand, and never none of us able for to be a knight, if that any of us to him had been a friend, and saved any life against thy mickle might, from death him to flit.
Amongst all that great rout he is dead, I have no doubt. Therefore, minstrel, round about blow a merry fit.
And so yes, they blow trumpets here, and Death suddenly kills Herod and the two knights, and even better, some demons turn up and captures them. So now we have not only Death but also some demons.
Hola, this cattle is mine. I shall bring him unto my cell. I shall teach him plays fine, and show such mirth as is in hell. It were more better among swine that ever more stinken there to be dwell. For in our lodge is so great pain that none earthly tongue can tell. With you I go my way. I shall you bear forth with me, and show you sports of our glee. Of our mirths now shall ye see, and ever sing well away.
Of King Herod all men beware, that hath rejoiced in pomp and pride. For all his boast of blissful bear, he lieth now dead here on his side. But when I come, I cannot spare, from me no wight may him hide. Now he is dead and cast in care, in hell pit ever to abide. His lordship is all lorn, now is he as poor as I. Worms' meat is his body, his soul in hell full painfully. Of devils is all to torn. All men dwelling upon the ground, beware of me, be mine counsel, for faint fellowship in me is found. I can no courtesy, as I tell, for be a man never so sound, of health in heart never so well, I come suddenly with an astound. Me withstand may no castle, my journey will I speed, of my coming no man is ware, for when men make most merry fare, then suddenly I cast him in care, and slay them, even indeed. Thou, I be naked and poor of array, and worms gnaw me all about. Yet look ye dread me night and day, for when death cometh, ye stand in doubt, even like to me, as I you say, shall all ye be here in this rout. When I you challenge at my day, I shall make right low to louse. And naked for to be, amongst worms as I you tell, under the earth shall ye dwell, and they shall eaten both flesh and fell, as they have done me.
Hallelujah! Happy days. As Helen put in the chat, here death menaceth the audience. Yeah, it is. The death has got his victims. The demons have taken them away, and he goes for the audience. I mean, what a way to end a play. Fab stuff. I really have to speak for the demon here, the Diabolus. Really loves his job.
Oh yeah.
Really, we like torturing people. We've got all the things. They're really gonna scream in torment. I don't know why I'm so cheerful about this ending. It's left me really quite positive in a weird way. Lois.
Poetic justice, but I think there is a hint about Death's costume. It must show worms all over it, right?
I think Castle of Severance has similar references to what the Death image looks like as well. So it's not quite a full skeleton. It's perhaps closer to rotting corpse zombie. In perhaps in the way that this particular thing's going for. Eric, I thought I saw a hand. I could be wrong.
I was just gonna say that, he basically, the bad guy gets his comeuppance in this. That's why we like the ending. But I think also that we maybe have traumatized Eleanor by including her in this play.
Well, welcome to the team.
Welcome to the club.
What I really like is also the way the music is sort of semi-incorporated. So you've got the music from within the play world of the minstrels playing, but then maybe the music, the way they play it, gets darker and stranger, because it denotes their death, as well as being music. He calls on the musicians to play, and it's their trumpet of their own doom. And there's something really nice about that. Music from within the play world becoming something exterior from what those characters think's going on. So I think that's really, really clever and really nice. Alan?
Yeah, I mean, in a modern production, you could actually do a fairly jolly number during the feast, and then crossfade it into something like Danse Macabre to give you the effect.
Well, when the National did the Tony Harrison version of the Mysteries, which was an interesting pick and mix, but the one element they did, I think, quite accurately is this sequence of the death of Herod. And at the moment when the music plays, it's a sort of dance of death moment. So the music plays, they're all individually killed, and then they actually all join hands and then exit to music. And it's quite delightfully dark. And done very, very nicely. I mean, there's elements of those mysteries. I think you can watch them on YouTube. I think they're about where Harrison has sort of mucked around with the text quite a lot in good ways, but they're not desperately accurate. But I think this sequence is very much straight from here. Okay, any additional thoughts on death or demons before we go into final thoughts? We're all just staring at Scooter, aren't we? All staring at the dog. Thoughts of death have passed us by as all we think of cute little dogs. Okay, right, we'll go into final thoughts. So we've got 3 plays here. What might we want to keep? What might we want to throw out? What we might want to do with these plays? I think we've got favourites very much in some of the action. But yes, we'll just go around and see what people think. Francis, final thoughts about this particular part of the sequence? Would you want to do bits in isolation, or do you feel that they all go better together? Or
I think they would go better together. It was interesting. Yeah, it's the most. I think it's the most difficult play. I found it the most difficult play to read so far, just because some of the words seem indecipherable. But I've just found it interesting the way these Bible stories were staged, and as I mentioned before, things like the dramatic device of having death and the demons. Yeah, that's all I have to say, really.
Though we should also note that sometimes it's the problem with words is more my fault than necessarily the original writer. Most of the time it isn't, but sometimes when we're trapped in this halfway house between Middle English and a semi-modernised, sometimes I create rods for our backs rather than help. Eric, final thoughts?
Yeah, I found it interesting how, like, before it was kind of death, at least in the place that I've participated in, death has not appeared. And death is sort of presented as God's messenger, which means like sort of vengeful God, as opposed to like the benign God, the sort of, the lover of life and that kind of thing, which is an interesting touch, I think. And also, how on earth do you play that character? I mean, even if you're wearing a mask, it's like, yeah, wow. Yeah, you go to the dark place. I think it's important though to have them in, well, maybe not necessarily in order, but you could make like a sort of a day with them, kind of. Although maybe not ending on the death one.
It's a really good point about ending on the death thing, because this is very much the end of a sequence, and this, that's why you might want to move the purification after this, so you get a moment of baby Jesus, or flight to Egypt. I don't know if we've really had a flight to Egypt moment. We might have done the other week, I can't remember, which you often get as part of the Three Kings sequence. Yes, we did. We had a few lines, didn't we? Very briefly. So yeah, maybe you just put a footnote in to try and cheer everyone up. But it is interesting with staging these plays. If you have a break between sequences, ending here on death is yeah, possibly a bit hard. Alan, I'll go to final thoughts for you.
Yeah, I'm just thinking in terms of the sequencing. The flight to Egypt has got to come before the slaughter of the innocents, and therefore logically this celebration play has got to be after the slaughter. Therefore, I think the sequencing as it stands in the volume as it's come down to us is probably right.
Oh yeah, no, I'm. Well, the question of the purification could come earlier rather than later. I mean, just maybe you see Joseph and Mary wandering along, being happy. There is no other material you could meaningfully put after Herod, because it jumps forward 10, 12, 14 years, something like that.
And the purification has got to come after the Magi.
Not according to they're not necessarily in the stable for the appearance of the Magi.
No, it's later.
Yeah, so just because we think of it as being there's a queue outside, there could be quite significant time jumps at that point. So no, the purification could go between. It seems like there's a decision was possibly made with this manuscript that they were going to put the purification in where play 17 isn't, and then change their mind and put it there in between with what would have been potentially a single play, because it partly depends on how the original people were staging it, whether they wanted to do what material. So they might do a complete play of Herod, and not split in between two plays with two units of action. We do have other plays where we can look at examples of how this material can move around. Coming up, more slaughtering babies is coming up, people. More coming soon, because it's Christmas. because we care. Any other final thoughts, Alan?
No, I must admit that unlike Francis, to a certain extent, I'm back in my comfort zone because of the amount of time we've spent working on these in the previous sort of iteration of the group when we were doing the Chester cycle and then the early End Town stuff. So it wasn't as radically unfamiliar to me as maybe some others are finding it.
It's really interesting when you start comparing between different versions of actually how different they can be. Herod is always very similar as a character, but the business going on around Herod seems to change quite a lot. And how many advisors they have and how they function, how sycophantic they are, how the kings function is very different. And that's before we even get to the work experience boy, which that's coming up soon. Helen, final thoughts?
Yeah, I felt that there was a great difference. I felt that the two Herod plays were a unit. But the Purification belonged to a different cycle. Far more to some of the stuff that we've previously read for End Town. I mean, I haven't read that much for End Town, but it did seem to me that we'd got something. These two particular Herod plays seemed to me, in language, in verse form, in emotion, in use of the stage, it all seemed very different.
Yeah, well, it's possible. We don't precisely know how all of those what are listed as potentially original cycle material, how they all came together. They could come from different times, even if they were eventually part of the same cycle, depending on who was staging it and when. Lois, final thoughts?
I think I've seen a couple of other Slaughter of the Innocents plays. There was one very elaborate one in which you see the mothers doing their best. I mean, they have quite a lot to say and they try to keep their children from the soldiers. And then there's one really awful moment when they've killed someone and the woman has been trying to explain and finally says it was the king's son.
Yes, coming soon.
Oh, it is. Oh, sorry.
No, it's all right. It'll be a surprise. It'll be a surprise for everyone. Actually, I don't know if it's coming soon. It might be coming next Christmas.
That was incredibly elaborate treatment of the thing. I found the simplicity of that was really quite effective. The women presumably just come out with dead children in their arms, and their lines are very beautiful. I thought a lot of this was beautifully written. I don't know. It seems to me that the ideal production would have everybody visible pretty much all the time so that you're aware of the different levels of the story. And if you wanted a less downbeat ending, you could simply take the very end of the Purification bit, and after the horrible death of Herod and the soldiers, just have Simeon saying, "Now let me die," and go off to have a happy, good death. And you could see Joseph and Mary going off in another direction, and it would be quite a nice feeling.
I really like that, because that's sort of the idea that some of these plays are sort of happening at the same time. Still structured so that they function and the whole event works. Sort of nodding to some of the pageant wagon sort of plays where in York and Chester, where potentially you do have the plays all happening at exactly the same time, just in a different location. But here it's about where your point of focus is. I really like that as an idea. Lynn, final thoughts?
Yes, in terms of we've been talking a lot about the plays as a unit and the structure and so forth, and I rather like the symmetry of having the Herod plays bookend this central episode of the Purification and meeting Simeon and so forth. So you have evil, ranting Herod, bragging and threatening, and then you have this sort of like eye of the storm where Simeon gets his wish and gets to see the Savior before he passes on. And then you're back to the Herod raging and boasting about his own cruelty. I just sort of like the symmetry of that. And another kind of odd little feature of this that I really like is the fact that Herod doesn't get a death speech. Last we hear of him, he's partying down. And then death comes in and just zaps him. So he kind of gets deprived of the last word. He doesn't get to go, woe is me, or I'm dying. He doesn't get that, and I sort of like the effect of that he never even gets the benefit of maybe seeing his own death or seeing the error of his ways. He really is cut off in the blossom of his sins.
Yeah, I really like your point there about the editing. That even if the plays were separate and different way, the editor of this book has made a very conscious and actually quite a well reasoned structure to the material, and I think that's really nice. That we should also respect the question of what the editor of this volume is trying to do, as well as perhaps what the original staging was, and that this is a weird composite text, and that they did a good job. Eric, you wanted to lead?
Yeah,
on
I
that
just
point?
wanted to add something to what Lynn said. More importantly, he doesn't get a confession, which Death mentions. Yeah.
Yeah, just Herod's dead. Demon takes him away. Everybody loves their job. Eleanor, final thoughts from you. Welcome to the room. You will get more to speak as the week goes on.
I was like, blooming hell, what's happening here in this play? I mean, if you can survive a medieval morality religious play where death absolutely goes for Herod and takes no prisoners, then you can survive anything, to be very honest. If there's something, particularly about what Lynn was going off, how there's the symmetry between, the nice person gets to see Jesus, and because they have been nice and they've been good and holy and religious, that we're going on it in terms of morality, they get the lovely death. They get to go to heaven. And that's what you should do. If you would like to pay the church fees, you also get to go to heaven. Remember. And it's like, yes. Whereas if you don't pay our church, and if you do bad things, then you will get death, and you will get all the horrible, nasty things, which is, I don't know what time it'll come from, but when you get those really like in your face depictions of hell on the church walls, showing you what death would have been like, or what hell is like, and telling them don't go there, that's like, it just feels the same. If you wanted to, you could take that night, the purification, and put it at the beginning, because if you just want it for chronological sense, Herod's demise would just make sense. But anyway, it's a beautiful and in your face, wow, play.
Beautiful in your face, wow. Yeah, I think that's the TripAdvisor comment, isn't it? Right. Well, that is. I think I've covered everyone. I haven't missed anyone out, have I? That is the plays 18 to 20, or arguably 17 through to 20. To discuss. We will be coming back to End Town. We will be going forward, but probably a little later on, because there's a time jump when we next see Jesus, no longer a baby, and actually having dialogue, and other things happen, and so we will be coming back to that. That's mostly going to be living on the podcast further down the line, because that's where this all started, but it will still also continue to exist as videos on YouTube at the same time, just to confuse everybody, and all that remains is to thank the glorious horse of Herod and all the readers who've contributed today, and goodbye.
Bye.